Hello, everybody, and welcome to another delightful episode of the Musings and Music Show. I don't know if you can see the face yet. I can. That's why I'm already smiling. I have my daughter here with me. Maybe not
Oh,
biological daughter, but in more ways than one, my daughter for real. And I'm delighted to have her with me, how she has grown and how she has progressed a lot in her life. She's going to be talking to us for the next few minutes, and I'm going to have her introduce her own self to you. So, who are our guests going to be listening to or watching in a few?
all right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Larissa Assam. I am a board certified family medicine physician. I am also an entrepreneur, an author, a philanthropist, a former management consultant. I could go down the list, but really, most importantly, I am a child of God. So I'm excited to be on the platform today. I'm excited to have this conversation, and we're just going to have a great talk. We hope that everyone who's listening in is going to learn a thing or two from what we're discussing. Yeah, thank you for having me, Nancy.
It's my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And so she's told you about herself. I don't know how much of it you're able to grasp, because that was a lot. That was a lot for one little individual who is barely, I don't know if you want to share your age precisely or thereabouts 20s, 30s, something is like that, or says precisely. So people can
Yeah.
understand why it is amazing that somebody this young should have all of that under her belt.
Yes, by God's grace, I can't say my exact age because I was raised that told a lady never tells her age.
Mhm.
But I will say that I am very young by God's grace.
Mhm.
And typically all that I mentioned would typically take a very long time, like 5, 10 years, if at all, maybe to excuse me. But I'll give a range, late 20s, very early 30s.
That's good enough for us to get the picture, because we know that there are people in the 50s, 60s who haven't gotten a quarter of what it is you've been able to achieve. So let's just start from the beginning. You said doctor. So we know it's not the doctor like they're just having a PhD, it's doctor like a medical doctor. So when did your interest in medicine start? Have you always wanted to be a doctor, like from day one?
Yes, so my story is very unique. I have actually wanted to be a doctor since I was 7 years old. So this started back in Cameroon. At the time, I was 7 years old, but even before that, I grew up in a household wherein my dad was a doctor, my mom was a pharmacist. And so I grew up surrounded by healthcare providers, so to speak. And the interest really peaked when my dad, at that age, I was 7, as I mentioned, he was involved in a really bad car accident. It actually made a lot of news. More now that I've grown up, I realize more news than I even knew when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he had been working across 3 different hospitals in Cameroon. He would work those 3 hospitals come. He was living in Douala, which was an hour away from where we were living in Boya at the time. So he would come home to Boya on the weekends, but then see patients like Saturday morning. So really, we mainly just saw him Saturday night into Sunday, and then he will go back Sunday night to continue working. And so that year, I was 7, and my siblings, I'm the oldest of 3. My siblings were
Mm-hmm.
even younger. My dad was in a really bad car accident. As a matter of fact, the car tumbled into a valley in Douala.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so bad that when they took him to the hospital, the doctors told my mom that if he had any chance of survival, he would need to be medically evacuated immediately. So, just to set the scene, this is a young couple. They have 3 children, oldest of whom is 7. They're just starting out, figuring life out. And, we're African. So, you don't only take care of your biological children, you're taking
Correct.
care of your brothers, your sisters, your parents, everyone.
Nieces
So,
and
they had a
nephews.
nieces and nephews. I always laugh and say we never had like father, mother, children. That was very foreign. We always had like a full house, like a good 9 people in the house at a time. That's just how we grew up. And so at the time, there were just so many things going on for them. And so I just now looking back, I'm like, wow, God, I don't know how this would have turned out. But I remember that faithful day like it was yesterday. I remember we had gone to sleep. And I remember that I couldn't sleep well. So my mom had told me to come and sleep in her room, which did not always happen. You know, my mom was strict. It's like, go to your room normally. But by the time I woke up in the morning, she wasn't there. And that wasn't like her. So I was like, what happened? So I asked our babysitter, like, oh, where is mommy? She was like, oh, she had to, I think she told me she had to go for a meeting or something. But my mom and I are close and we've always been very close. So I was like, that's strange. She won't just like leave for a meeting. She didn't tell me anything. What's going on? So I noticed that when we're eating breakfast, getting ready for school, people were coming to the house and, you know, speaking Pidgin English, they were asking different questions like, oh, na head inak or na bag or this or that. And I was just putting one and two together. And
Right.
very quickly at that age, I put one and two together. I was like, oh, my dad has been in an accident. And that's why my mom isn't here. But again, I was the oldest of three. So I had to keep it together. I got my siblings ready. I was like, okay, guys, come on, we got to go to school. By the time we came back home from school that day, my grandmother had come, my mom's mom. And then I was like, oh, something has definitely,
Something
this is
has
how
gone
I know
wrong.
something has happened because it's the middle of the week. You know, grandma loves to come to see us, but
Not in the middle of the
she
week.
didn't announce this one. Mommy's got no, what's going on? So my grandmother came, stayed with us, and my mom came back, oh, I want to say a week later, and she told us at that point, okay, officially, you know, daddy has been, my grandmother stayed with us that whole time. She told us officially, you know, your dad has been in an accident. We need to travel for his care. It had been a week, I want to say, at that point, if I'm remembering correctly. And she came, packed up their things, and was gone. And I didn't see my parents for 4 months.
Wow.
Now, yeah, and he was medically evacuated to the UK. My grandmother stayed with us that whole time.
Right.
And so um it looked, she really had us on a schedule. We had prayer, whether it was the Catholic priest coming to the house or the Presbyterian pastor coming to the house, we were on his schedule for prayer. And I distinctly remember even now, my dad's pastor at the time said, you know, I remember praying that my dad will not die because he had been working so much. So that's why I shared that part about him working across 3 hospitals on Saturdays
Right.
as well. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, I haven't even gotten time with my dad. So I hope he, you know, like, please, God, don't let him die. Like, we're praying. That's all I know how to do. And by God's grace, 4 months later, came back walking, barely would have known anything happened to him, except that he had a neck brace, which came off, I want to say, like a couple of days later. And now, if you see him, all you will really see is the scars, but he really
Right.
doesn't look like what he has been through by the grace of God. Came back, went right back to work, still practicing medicine till date. But that really showed me the inadequacies in the healthcare system in Cameroon. I felt like for someone who had worked so hard serving people, and you know, people go into the medical field for different reasons, but
Right.
this was, I could, because I could testify of living it out with him. I knew he was in it for the right reasons. I just saw the nobility of the career up close. As a matter of fact, my dad would tell me, like, go do business. Like, why do you want to bother with medicine? It's a lot of work, you know? But I was like, no, I want to do it. But as time went on, I always knew I wanted to help people. But it became very clear to me after that accident, after that situation, that this was exactly how I wanted to help people.
Through as a medical doctor, help them with their medical needs. Okay,
Yes.
so you go through primary school with that in mind, and then I know for boarding school, I know where you went to school because that's the same boarding school I went to, the same boarding
Yeah.
school your mom went to, because she was
Yes.
in like Form 5 when I was in Form 1, and I was long
Mhm.
gone from there before you ever showed up. Went through Seka too, still wanting to be a doctor. That stayed on. Okay. Did anything, I'm just curious, did anything happen in Seka that helped to confirm it even
Mhm.
more, or like, huh?
Yeah, I would say one thing that confirmed it was I loved science. I ended up just biology was my favorite class. When we ended up doing human biology, it was my favorite class. So I genuinely had a love for the sciences. My least favorite subject was physics. But outside of that, I genuinely enjoyed math. I enjoyed calculus, all the things that people would say, oh, I just don't like this. I genuinely enjoyed. And I always laugh and say, I always kind of been a nerd, but like a cute nerd at the same time.
Yes,
Like
and
I
that's why I
like
like to have those of you that are like that don't fit the stereotype. Because they say
yeah.
people who like book, they don't want a doctor kind of a thing, science, I had Mbu Windim, I don't hear, and I was like, this
Yes,
is what you
yes,
need to
yes,
see. Pretty
yes,
beautiful bookwoman them. Because we'll say they're going to have is one or the other. If you're a bookwoman, then you
exactly.
look like a piece of something. I don't want to
No,
mention the
please.
say the
When
word.
I
Yes. Yes.
exactly. Yes.
Uh-huh.
So I always love beauty, hair, all the things. And so that was it for me. I just felt like I just did what I wanted to do. I was kind of focused on that. I knew what my ultimate goal was. And I will say that even from Seca days, I had a lot of tunnel vision. I ended up at the time I got to high school, my grades were good the whole time. But when I got to high school, I remember lower sit, we had handover and I became senior prefect, which is if you're in the US, that's kind of equivalent to student body president.
Right.
And so for me, I used it to my advantage. So I never really got into the let me go and terrorize people, this or that. I was like, first of all, in that role, I didn't think that that was my place to do those kinds of things. I
Mm-hmm.
also knew that I needed to be a leader and I knew
Mm-hmm.
that I couldn't fail and set a bad example and then expect the other girls to do well. So for
Right.
me, it looked like I would wake up earlier than 5, 4:30, get ready. When everybody was going to do their morning work, because I didn't have to do that, I went up
Mm-hmm.
to study.
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
went up to study. I would just try and optimize on my time because I knew that I would be needed as a leader later in the day. And so, I just needed to be organized. So I used it to my advantage. Let me put it that
Correct.
way.
Mm-hmm.
But also made sure that I was showing up and serving the students as needed. So I would
Correct.
say that was that. I did things like health club in SECAB. Why? Because I just liked it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we have a lot of African children who, at least my friends, they would say, oh, my parents really want me to be a doctor and this and that. And I would always laugh and say, I kind of have the opposite situation wherein I have a parent who's kind of saying, I don't think you should do it. But it was good for me because it confirmed that this was me. It wasn't that my
Right.
parents were forcing
We're
me.
forcing you.
No, they never
Mm-hmm.
put that pressure on me, like, you must do this. No, they never did that. So it felt like, okay, if I'm making this decision, if it goes well, it's on me. If it doesn't go well,
It's on you still.
so yep.
So what was university like? Now you get out of SECA with your A levels. What was university like?
Yes. So I finished SECA. I graduated in 2010 and then moved to the US. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go to QS. I was very happy in Cameroon. I had
Mm-hmm.
come to the US and I had traveled to the UK on vacation. And I had noticed that people were always working, especially in America. So I had no desire whatsoever to come to the US.
Mm-hmm.
So I was perfectly happy going to QS or maybe to Ghana. But my parents encouraged me to consider the US, and it would have been a bit foolish of me not to take the
Yeah.
opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to school upstate New York, literally close to Canada, in a
Cold.
place called cold, very snowy, in a place called Oswego, New York,
Mm-hmm.
where most people had never heard of it. Tiny, tiny college town, predominantly white institution. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember that my first week, in fact, my first day, I asked my cousin to come stay with me because I wasn't used to being away from my family. Granted, they were just
Right.
10 minutes away. Just to put things into context, I was acting like it was so far. But they were 10 minutes away, but it was such a big deal to me. So I asked my cousin to come stay with me,
Mm-hmm.
which she did for a couple of days, maybe 2, 3 days. That made me feel a
Mm-hmm.
bit more comfortable. I wasn't used to, after Seika, my cousins had gone there, my sister was there. I was used to having, of course, friends, but also literally my sisters in the
Mm-hmm.
same school. So now I'm like, wait, what is this new territory? There was a lot of culture shock for me. I felt very homesick as well.
Mm-hmm.
But quickly I formed friends. After really the first week or so, I started to form friends, and it ended up being a very valuable experience. I absolutely loved my undergraduate experience. The students who were at the college who were Black, because we were the minority, really did
Mm-hmm.
stick together. So I remember that first weekend, they literally got all of us who were in the first year in a room together, and they told us, guys, strive to get all A's. Don't get any, try not to get any B's. Definitely don't get any C's, because if you do, that's going to bring down your GPA and it's going to
Right.
be really hard to bring it back up. So from day one, I was like, oh no. So college looked like, if I had I would have, I think I had an 89% on my first exam. And
Awesome.
I went to my, oh no, Auntie,
You said
I
you
was
said
not
you said no,
happy
that's
with
not good
it.
enough.
I
I'll take it.
wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with it. I went to my chemistry professor. That was my first exam. And I told him, I was like, please, I've just moved from Cameroon. I'm getting adjusted to the American system. Please, I cannot have an 89. I need to go to medical school. All my professors, if there's one thing I will ring in their ears, I need to go to medical school. And I think for
Mm-hmm.
them, being at a predominantly, I was a bit of a surprise to them. You know,
Right.
unfortunately, maybe they too had some stereotypes from before. Like, who is this little Black girl bothering with a little accent too? I'm trying to even
Mm-hmm.
figure her out. Where is she even from? Why are you bothering me about 89%? Are you even happy you passed? And I was like,
Exactly.
no, no, I'm not. I need to get an A in the class. So I
Mm-hmm.
would pester them till date. One of them, he just messaged me on LinkedIn. I was like, wow, look at how you turned out
Oh dear.
all these years. But I was, for what it was worth, good or bad, I just had my eyes fixed on
Set
this.
on the
We're
yes,
not,
no looking left
if
or
you
right.
were not on par with the goal, you got pushed to the side, and that was the goal.
Wow. That is
But I also had
determination.
backing. I had backing because my family knew that that's what I wanted to do. So they would push me too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we kind of don't like it when people push us, but for me, my mom always used to laugh. She was like, this girl, you can sleep. Sometimes you need someone to push you a little bit.
Right. Right. To make sure you're following along. So now you get done with university and then now you're getting into medical school, that part of things. How did that go? Did you get into the medical school of your choice? Just
Mm,
give us a picture. Because I want people to hear all of this stuff and just see your journey, what it took you. And because I know people are going to listen there in Cameroon and anywhere else. What does it take? So let's just go through the entire story. So now you're getting ready to get into medical school. Which
mhm.
one? How did you decide? Make up your mind which one to go to and all of that stuff.
Okay, so I was an international student. Um, and I was limited. I couldn't apply to just every school. I was a bit limited by which schools I could apply to because of that. Not every medical school in America takes people who are on a student visa. And
Okay.
so I made a list. My uncle and I, we sat down and made a list of all the schools that will potentially take me. And then he will point out, like, listen, this school is in some remote place in Arkansas
Mm-hmm.
somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you want to go to medical school there. So we
Mm-hmm.
came down with a list of 20 schools, and I applied to 20 schools. I
Wow.
graduated college magna cum laude, which means my GPA was about 3.8 out of 4, which is considered quite high.
Mm-hmm.
I kept on getting
Definitely.
rejection after rejection after rejection
Wow.
from medical schools. Yes. And I remember thinking, like, I don't understand, I thought I had the grades, it took a toll on my confidence. It did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Such that one day my uncle called me. It was a Saturday. I think it was, yeah, it's Saturday because he was off work. He called me and was like, okay, we need a strategy because this is not working. It's like, you
Mm-hmm.
need to go and look and see what schools we can go and just visit. We're living in Oswego, New York. The closest town with medical school was Syracuse, New York. And
Okay.
so we basically, I checked, and it just so happened that they had an open house, which is the day when you can come and visit the
The
school,
school.
the next Saturday. So
Mm-hmm.
he was like, go on there quickly, register. So we register for the event and we go the next Saturday to this open house. And when we walk in, my uncle tells me in my ear, he's like, we're not here to be listening to whatever it is that they're talking about. He asked me, who are the decision makers in the room? I'm like, oh, I know that that's the dean of admissions because she had come to speak at my school. I had emailed her but hadn't heard back. It's like, okay, that's who we need to talk to. We even came towards the end of the program. We go and we talk to the lady, and I just happened to mention to her, you know, thank you for the presentation. You had come to my school before. I'm sure you were busy. I had emailed you, but I'm sure maybe you weren't able to see it. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Listen, take down my email address and email me. I'm like, okay, no problem. I get home that day. That is Saturday. I send her an email because I told her, I was like, I really want to come here. I really want to come to this school, you know. And so I sent her an email. And then Monday morning, I get a phone call. I sent her that email. I don't get a response from her. I get a phone call on Monday morning, and it's a phone call inviting me for an interview. And my interview is that Wednesday. So I went from a series of rejections to now having this interview just like that within hours. And it really opened my eyes to see something. I was like, wow. So you mean to tell me when you apply to medical school, it doesn't end there? You have to make these people know who you are. You have to, like, they have to put a face to the name. I didn't know that. I did not know that. So it worked out. I interviewed. I had a very good interview. In fact, one of the people who interviewed me told me, he's like, listen, when you become a doctor, don't forget the things that you told me. And I still remember him telling me that till date. Don't remember the things
what's one of the things that you did tell him?
So he had asked me why. You know, he said, you know, you can do so many things in life. Why do you want to do this? You know, it's hard. You've grown up in this thing. Why do you want to do it? And I told him that I've reached a point as time has gone on that I've gotten now more exposure to medicine. I'd actually been in the hospital, in clinics. And I said, I've realized that this is beyond me. This is beyond me saying, I don't care about money. Like, not say I don't care about it, but if I wanted to make money, I would go into business. And I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. So I knew what it was like to do business and make money. It wouldn't be medicine. So that I would choose. So I was like, I know it's not about that. I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's like there's something inside of me that cannot rest until I know that I'm taking care of someone. And I would even, and so basically I told him, I was like, this is a calling. It's beyond a job. Like, this is a calling for me. Yeah. Like, I don't know how else to explain it to you, but I need to do this because I need to sleep. If I don't do this thing, I feel like I'm not going to have any rest in my life. And so he told me, like, never forget that. Never forget that. So I got
The drive. That's what will keep you going, even when a job gets challenging. Like all jobs do get challenging. If you didn't go in for the right reasons, you will be running away pretty soon.
100%.
It's if you've gone in with that, it's a calling. There's some jobs that are you can do them for the paycheck, you can do them for the prestige, but there's some certain jobs like that one, like the ministry. When I say the ministry, like church, being a pastor, you have no business going anywhere near those two things in particular if you don't have a calling for them. It's not just a job; it is a calling, something that God has laid upon your heart to go do, and you go and fulfill. It's not the same way as just going to being a cashier somewhere. It's just do the work, and you can get by even if you don't like it. But this one,
and I had seen, I think I started to understand myself a little more and why I felt so strongly about it, because I had seen it in my dad and I had seen it in my uncle. Although they had different specialties, I had, because you wouldn't, why are you coming home at 1 in the morning? Like, which
what kind of
human would
life is
I
that?
definitely, yeah, what kind of life is, why would you sign up for that? And it's hard to explain except to say this is a calling, you know. And it's such, I'm so glad we're discussing this, because we also, so in the US, that's the statistics that doctors have. The only population that compares to the statistics, unfortunately the negative ones, is the military. When you think of the rates of suicide, depression, anxiety, all these things that can happen, they only compare to the military. And we know that this.
I didn't realize that. You see,
Yes,
the
please.
picture we see of a doctor is that they're going to have a big house, big car,
Right.
making a lot of money, blah blah blah. It's true that you know that they work hard, but
Mhm.
we mostly see the glamour side of them. Somebody's a medical doctor that you see the white coat thing and they're
Mhm.
going up with stethoscope around their neck. They are like,
Mhm.
whoa.
Yeah.
You know, we see the ones on TV, the ones that play
Right.
that role on TV, looking very,
Yes.
very glamorous.
Mhm.
So we don't think about the fact that that kind of schedule will be give you you're in for burnout,
Yeah. Yes.
you're in for
Burnout.
some issues, even in
Burnout.
your
Yeah.
home, because you're coming at
Yes.
those hours that the wife is asking like, what's going on here?
Yes.
The
And if you
husband is
don't
asking what's
marry
going
the
on with
right
you too.
person,
Mhm.
yeah, someone who actually understands the calling and can support you, especially through residency. I know we're gonna get to
Mhm.
discuss that as well. It becomes very tough, you know. I'll be honest, even when I was in medical school, again, I was so locked in on my goal that I'm not saying it like I'm proud of it, but I was at the time, if I was dating someone and I found that it became a distraction because of this or that, I would end it because I
Right.
wasn't willing to let anything compromise this call on my
That
life. I
goal of
wasn't willing to let
yours.
anything compromise it. Now I'm in a very different season of my life, but at the time, even looking back, it was necessary. But that is the
Right.
degree of focus that you need
That
to
you
have.
have.
You know, there are things, so many family events I didn't get to go for, people's weddings. I would be really sad,
Mhm. But
really,
the
really
choice is,
sad.
but still make the choice to not go.
Yes, because I couldn't go. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I got into one medical school. That one medical school, SUNY Upstate, is where years later in my third year, my grandmother would end up coming for a summer holiday, end up being quite ill and being admitted to my teaching hospital. And
Wow.
now at that point, I understood the hand of God, why all of those doors were
Mm-hmm. Had
rejections.
also the rejections.
I had to be there. That was
Right.
the because that was the closest one to home. It was
Mm-hmm.
only that year that it made sense. I was like, wow, this is why.
Yep.
Because so that she would be here. It was literally my team that I had worked with them already on internal medicine. And then it was
Mm-hmm.
them who were taking care of my grandmother. And I was able to say, guys, that's my grandmother. And they
Right.
went above and beyond. And it was
Correct.
just, you know, she got what she needed to get at the time in terms of care
Mm-hmm.
for something that was an unexpected health condition anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in the grand scheme of things, I was right where I needed to be, although it was hard. It was hard getting all those rejections. And the biggest part is picking yourself up again when it's like,
And
oof,
going on. Yeah.
keep pushing. Keep
Keep
pushing, like
pushing.
even, yeah, like trying not to allow yourself to stay
To,
down,
to, to
stay
feel
defeated.
inadequate and actually
There's no
believe that each
time.
rejection is a reflection of you.
Yes,
When you know that you're not
yes,
worthy enough, when you know that
yes,
your brain should know that that's not the case, but then sometimes your heart and your feelings and your emotions
100%.
get hurt. Nobody likes
Yes,
to hear no and just say yes. I got told no, and then why did you apply for the thing if no is the answer you wanted? So
exactly.
you can't pretend to be
Exactly.
happy with no.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
So let's keep moving forward down that journey. There's Johns Hopkins in the picture. So what at what point did that part come in? Because I don't know anybody, whether there's anybody listening to us who does not know, who has never heard about Johns Hopkins before. Maybe you want to go there and start with what kind of institution it is, so people get a
Yeah.
picture of what it means for you to even have your name associated with that institution.
By the grace of God.
Hallelujah, amen to that.
So, um, it has a bit of a backstory.
Okay,
When I was younger, actually primary school, my mom, I think my sister is the one who even got that book. There's a book called Gifted Hands by a surgeon called Dr. Ben Carson, and
okay.
he had trained at
The one
Johns.
who ran for office for president.
Yes, the one who ran for office. So
Hmm.
he was a neurosurgeon and he became famous because he separated Siamese twins. He came from
Correct.
very humble backgrounds, worked
Hmm.
his way through education, and found
Hmm.
himself at the esteemed Johns Hopkins. It's a big
Right.
name, it's a prestigious hospital
Yes,
in
it is.
the Northeast area. It is the number one hospital.
Hmm.
And so I thought, I want to go to Johns Hopkins after reading Gifted Hands. So obviously, I applied to their medical school and I
Hmm.
didn't get in. That's where I really wanted to go for medical school. But I was
Hmm.
content that I had gotten into a school at Upstate.
Mhm.
Fast forward to my third year, after my grandmother passed away that year, I went home to Cameroon. And whilst I was there, I did a research study just briefly for a couple of weeks, came back, and I told one of my professors, I'm like, I realized I always used to say I want to move back to Cameroon, but it was that brief rotation that showed me, oh, healthcare in America and healthcare in Cameroon are completely different. If I'm
Right.
thinking I'm going to train here, transfer myself there, and just do things anyhow, it's not going to work. And I'm not
Mhm.
going to serve people in the best way. I told her, I feel like I need more training. And then she told me, I think you should consider doing a master's of public health. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I've never thought about that. Kind of sat with it, looked at it. And then she told me, she's like, let me tell you, because I was in school in Syracuse, New York. There was
Mhm.
actually a program. So I was in her office when she was telling me all of this. She said, let me tell you, don't do it here. Let me tell you, my dad used to be a professor at Johns Hopkins. This is
Mhm.
God orchestrating this whole thing. My dad used to be a professor at Johns Hopkins. I think you should consider going there because they have a very strong international health program, and your
Right.
heart is for the nations. Your heart is for sub-Saharan Africa. So if you're going
Right.
to train anywhere, you can get a training anywhere, but what will equip you and allow you to do the things you really want to do in your heart, it's going to be going there. She said, consider Hopkins and consider Emory.
Okay.
So I said, okay. So I put in my application, and I had learned through my medical school application how to push, right, for something. Now I didn't leave it as I put in an application and that's it. Now I
Mhm.
was the one who reached out. I scheduled the open house, came down, spoke with the chair, this, that. I remember telling my mom after I met with the chair, I was like, Mommy, she's like trying to sell Johns Hopkins to me. I don't understand what's going on. And my mom was like, well, we will continue to pray about it and trust God.
Mhm.
I didn't really, actually, I didn't even tell my parents before I applied because it just needed to be a decision I made with God and myself. It was
Right.
such a shift. I was so used to being on this path, this path through medicine. I was in my third out of fourth years of medical school. What do you mean you want to add an additional year of training? Like I had to come with a plan to them.
Yes.
So at this point, I had really sat, prayed, fasted. I was certain that this was the direction God was sending me. And so by the grace of God, I ended up getting into Hopkins. And the true testimony is that I didn't get into the medical school, but the medical school is not number one in the country.
Mhm.
Now, the School of Public Health, their Masters of Public Health program, not only is it number one in the country, it's number one in the world.
Okay.
So sometimes you look at the shut door and think that's it, but there's
Right.
even better that is coming. And it was one of
Right.
probably the best year of education, I would say, throughout my journey. I've
Right.
never
And
been
you
so
see, one thing that I
successful.
must throw in here because of the people that we have listening is that
Mhm.
sometimes we hear the big names. Yes,
Yes.
Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all the Ivy League, and then the Johns Hopkins and things. Yes, they are amazing schools, but sometimes it depends on what it is that you want to do for a career. That may not be the best school for that particular thing
Yes.
you're trying to do. So you want to do, don't say you're going to do, it's not that there's a bad thing, it's a bad thing to go. I don't know if Harvard has a school of music. I guess it
Mhm.
does. But that program in the Harvard's own program of music will not hold a candle to Juilliard. That's over there in New York, which is
Yes.
the place for those who are going to do that. So that's what some people need to understand. Sometimes parents, we parents who did not go to school here, who did not quite get the whole picture. It's a good thing that you mentioned that the you go to an institution and it's school of Harvard School of Law is what is the thing. This other school of medicine in this particular place is what's good. So it depends on what it is that you're trying to do. Maybe we should need to do the research like you did to figure out where you're going, what specific school in that whole thing it will be best. Mhm. Please go on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And looking back, even my undergrad, it was a tiny school. Like I said, people didn't know what my school was. Oswego, who's heard of it? Tiny school. But I found so much favor there because it was small enough. I could shine. I ended up getting so many awards. I really
I
could shine. So
remember.
sometimes, by God's grace, so sometimes, yes, the big names are great, but sometimes wherever you are, I would say just focus on making the best of wherever it is you find yourself,
Right,
you know?
right. So you got in there, and then okay, fast forward to residency time. And how did that go?
Okay, so I got into Johns Hopkins. In order to go to Hopkins, I took a gap year. I took a break between my third and fourth years of medical school.
Mhm.
Finished that year, went back for my fourth year. Before going to Hopkins, I was going into plastic surgery. All of my
Wow.
research was in it. All of my mentors were in plastic surgery. Everybody knew me in that space.
Mhm.
And then I did the Masters of Public Health and I loved it so much. So I was like, I can't do surgery anymore. It took a lot of prayer and reflection, but decided to make the switch into family medicine.
Okay.
So going back, um, one thing which I will encourage is prayer. I cannot stress it enough because I had been seeking God and asking Him to really guide me. He had told me a year in advance that I would go to Georgetown for my residency. So by the time I was going back for my last year, which is when you apply for residency, I
Yeah.
already knew that Georgetown was where he wanted me to be.
Hmm.
And so took my I went through the process, did my applications and everything, but I knew where to exert my energy, which was Georgetown. And even
Mhm.
that, it wasn't just putting the application and leaving it there. It was making sure, oh, you will know my name. Every faculty, every chair, every whoever, not only will you know my name, you will know why I'm coming here. I knew I wanted
Exactly.
to teach. You
Hmm.
will know that I'm coming here to teach. Like I made it very, very clear. And so I came back to the DC area and went to Georgetown. I did my first 2 years and actually was really good. It was not easy. I'll be honest, residency is not easy. You're working 80 hours a week. I also did not have the most supportive program. So
Hmm.
that was probably in my entire educational journey. That was
Hmm.
very hard because it's like, wow, you're
Oh,
finally done with medical school. You finally attained the thing you've been working at so hard. Now you're just doing your extra training. But this is where you're
right.
encountering roadblocks. A lot of things came up, contention, just a lot of realizing like sometimes when you are doing well, not everyone is happy about that,
Hmm.
right? And so learning how to play politics, learning how to respect. And I will be honest, I don't think I responded in the best way all the time. There
Hmm.
was a lot of um, with a faculty member, I remember even trying to frame stories about me not coming to work and things. But every time
Hmm.
there was that retaliation, some way, somehow, it was proved that I had nothing to do with it. And then I would win another award and it would get her even more upset, just like that. And
Wow.
it ended up being a situation in which bullying was happening. And for me, I had already gotten a warning because as I was coming in to start my residency, one
Hmm.
of the residents who was graduating, I was taking over his patient panel. And he told me, don't trust her. I didn't know this guy from anywhere. He's like, she targets Black residents. Don't trust her. And I was like, what? Only to find out he committed suicide 2 months after
Oh,
graduating his residency. So that was the start of my residency journey. It was very
no.
shocking. And I had to be very
Traumatic.
traumatic, yes.
Oh
Very.
gosh.
For the first time, and it's not to say that I didn't have challenges along the way. I mentioned my grandmother dying, and even through that time, I was seeing my patients coming, studying for all my exams in her hospital room. That was my third year. I don't know how I really passed that year, but this was a different level of trauma that I was dealing with. And it was not easy. I sought help. I had counsel even within my family, but it reached a point where I noticed that, I could tolerate certain things. I could deal with, someone not liking me and this and that. But when it started to affect my patient care, I knew that
Right.
something had shifted and something was not okay. Around the same time, I felt like God had been telling me that I needed to leave. I was like, what do you mean? I finally have one more year of this whole journey that started at age 7. What do you
Hmm.
mean leave? We're almost there. So it took me 18 months to finally make that decision to leave. But once I did, I applied for jobs because I couldn't just leave like that.
And just it, yeah.
And just said, you mentioned Mbu winding. So
Yes.
Mbu at the time she's actually still working for them. She was working for a management consulting firm called McKinsey and Company. And I remember one day just going on her profile. At that point, I'd made up my mind I was leaving. I just needed to figure out what I was going to do. McKinsey used to recruit from Hopkins, but at the time I was not interested because I was pursuing
Really?
clinical medicine.
Right.
And so I asked her, I was like, you're an aerospace engineer. How are you working for McKinsey? So she and I got on the phone, talked, and she was like, you know what, just apply, just see what happens, just apply. So she put in a
Right.
referral for me. And this is why networks are important.
Mm.
Connections are important. And it was so powerful for me because I'm very big on if there's an opportunity, I will open it for someone else.
Right.
Sometimes all you need is the right referral. It
That's
was
it.
such a quick process. I put in the referral, I think on a Monday, similar situation. Wednesday, got a call from a recruiter, and my
Mm-hmm.
interview was scheduled for about 3 weeks later. I interviewed that day, got the job on the spot to
Look
work
at
at
that.
McKinsey
Look at
by
that.
God's grace, by God's grace.
Look at
And
that.
that was it. And so
And then
now,
now you can turn around and do the same for someone else too, which is
absolutely,
the way to go. You
absolutely,
you have
absolutely,
underscored. I'm glad you underscored that. That
absolutely.
the power of networking, and then
Yes,
the idea of giving back, paying
yes,
forward the thing that you have received. Not that
yes.
you somebody has done that for you, then now you sit. Some other person is
Mm-mm,
asking for help, and you don't
mm-mm.
want to help in any way, shape, or form. That's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and I'll always speak very highly of her, because we go all the way back,
Mm-hmm.
not only
Mm-hmm.
Seka, but Douala. Our families
Yep.
live in Douala, our
Right.
parents know each other. And,
Right.
it's not like that with every single person. She truly
Mm-hmm.
has a heart to see people win and excel. And yeah, she helped me get in. It didn't stop there. She was always a call away. I ended up working for them in London, but it was very quick and easy for us to quickly check in on WhatsApp, even on our office calendars. Every so often we'll just check in on each other, and she really like more so kind of taking that mentor role on, until finally I decided it was time to come back and finish my training in
Mm-hmm.
residency. And that was quite different because one, I was training at Georgetown, which everybody wants to. Georgetown is a prestigious institution.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to train there. So if you're there, it's kind of like you succumb to whatever and you go through it. So to leave and then say you're coming back, it's like, what? So I had also been warned by this same attending that if I was leaving, when I came back, I would repeat a year. I would have to do an additional year. And that was not an easy year too. One of our cousins, like she was really like a younger sister and a mentee because she wanted to go into medicine, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
She ended up passing away around that same period. So
Right.
there was just so much going on. I think now looking back, it was healthiest for me to be working in the public health space without realizing I had already secured the job in McKinsey. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize that was going to happen.
Right.
So I went back, and so I told them, hey, I want to come back. What do we need to do? I didn't even ask, can I come back? I was like, oh, what do we need to do? I'm ready to come back. And she was like,
Yes, they said it as a matter of fact.
yeah. Now, by God's grace, this same faculty member who had been giving me a hard time, I just want
Mhm.
to encourage anyone too who maybe is going through a hard time, whether at work or at school or this or that. There is power in prayer.
Mhm.
I ended up just taking the matter to God in prayer. They ended up launching an entire investigation. At that point, it went beyond me. This was happening with faculty, with students, all that to say, she ended up being removed from that position. And this was very much a behind closed doors thing for me. And now I can share it because I'm done and I'm out.
Right.
But at the time, I very much was saying, you need to do something, like talking to the designated institutional officer.
Mhm.
It's like, you need to do something because people are here struggling with anxiety, depression. I'm I didn't tell her, but I was like, I'm on my way out, but you need to do something because this is very unhealthy.
Right.
And they did this entire investigation. So much came to the surface, and there just was not, something had to be done.
Yeah.
So she ended up being removed. And by the time I came back, I had an incredible year because it was now just supportive faculty who were remaining at the program. Although it was residency, it felt like I really had the last year to just focus on learning and sleeping. And I always have a side business, like blame it on my family. So working on that, that was it. And so it was the most peaceful year of residency that I had. And
Wow.
I graduated, my graduation ceremony is in June, and then completed my 12-month period. You have to do a total of 36 clinical months. Completed it in November, took my boards, passed my boards, and since started,
Congratulations.
thank you. I've since started my private practice. So that
Okay.
is a story.
Do you want to tell us about the okay, well, so what part where does the London factor figure in?
Oh, yes, sorry. So London comes in when with McKinsey, with the
Okay.
consulting firm. So when I
Okay.
got the job, I relocated to London. Initially, I was going to work in DC, but due to logistical issues, it ended, or situations, let me not say issues, it made the most sense for me to work in London. So when I moved to London, I was thinking I was done with clinical medicine. I
Wow.
was done with the US. I didn't, excuse me, I never planned on coming back.
All right.
So that's how London happened. I was working for McKinsey in London. I only ever worked for their London office, and
Uh-huh.
then came back November of 2022 to complete my residency.
Wow. So, where would you classify that experience as worthwhile? Well, for those of us who believe what we believe, nothing ever happens in your life for no reason. You
Yeah.
are somewhere to learn something for a purpose, to meet someone you need to meet for something down the road. Have you figured out what that is, what that thing is now already?
With McKinsey or in general?
In general, let me broaden it in general.
Yeah. I think my story is the way it is because I think God really wanted to take someone who the system, if you look at just the American system,
Mm-hmm.
the system would have counted out a long time ago. You know,
Yeah.
people end up needing to do all sorts of things because they're trying to make it in America, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And there's a place where I understand that because you're trying to survive. But I
Right.
had adopted a mindset, you know, those who are close to me, even from Seca days, will know I try to be by the book. Try. I'm not saying I'm excellent at it. But God took someone's story who went to a school that nobody knew about. Some way, somehow, international student got into, at the time, I didn't know many international students in
Mm-hmm.
America who were
Mm-hmm.
getting into, accepted into American medical schools.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself was a whole situation because
Right.
wow, that happened. Um, Additionally, even beyond that, okay, now you're in medical school, you should just be grateful and content for where you are. But
Right.
then God decides to redirect your path again, and you go off course, you leave all your friends, right? Because medical school is very competitive, you know, it's
Right.
very, very competitive. And so it was character development the whole way. It was
Mm-hmm.
realizing that I call this a calling, but who called me? It's God. So am I going to answer to him or to people?
Right.
Not everybody understood the decisions I made, and it's okay because they weren't supposed to understand them.
Right.
I was giving the instructions, not them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was responsible for bearing the consequences of making my decisions, whatever those looked like.
Mm-hmm. And
Along the
it's
way,
a funny thing. So God gives you that mission and that thing, and sometimes you wish you would tell everybody else involved
oh,
so that you can all work with you. It doesn't work like that. I
it
remember
doesn't
saying
work
making
like
that
that.
exact statement for somebody like Joseph, husband of Mary. Okay, so now you've told him to go ahead and take this lady who has ended up pregnant there and take, but he's not telling the mother-in-law who's going to his own mother who's going to say, "We are doing what? A girl is already pregnant. They are going to take her." So you sometimes wish that angel did not come to just him, to just Mary, to just so, but came to the entire neighborhood to explain it so that you don't have to feel awkward or funny in that situation. Unfortunately, it does not happen like that. You really have to have your message came for you. The calling is you. You need to figure out how to work it out and stick with it because of what you know in you is what you've been given as a mission, knowing that you're going to have to answer to somebody, the person that gave you the mission, you're going to answer to them eventually. And then
Yes.
pointing at somebody said, but I wanted to do it, but so and so said I should not, doesn't fly.
It doesn't, oh, that I'm so glad you said that. It doesn't fly. It doesn't. And I think I have now matured, and I will be clear, it wasn't always easy. The reason why I delayed for 18 months to leave, I knew what God had said on day one, but I was so concerned. How am I going to explain this? How do you really explain this to anyone else? You know what God's saying, but it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up. But now it creates for a story wherein I will tell someone else, follow what God is saying. He will truly take care of everything. In all of this, even my student loan debt, I had $200,000 in student loan debt. I told God, I'm starting residency 2019. By the time I graduate residency, this thing needs to be paid off completely. Residents in the US, you make like an average of $50,000 a year. How do you pay off $200,000 living in an area like the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area? How do you, the math doesn't add up.
Even if you're
But
taking the entire paycheck to just do that, but you don't have, you're not going to live under a bridge.
right.
You're not going to not eat anything. There's that too.
Even if you take the entire paycheck, but I told God, like, I need you, I want to be debt free. By the time I graduate, I gave him 3 years. My student loans were paid off in 18 months. And at the time when they were paid off, I was closing on a house, which I've since sold because it worked out. But I was closing that. I can't make this stuff up.
Right.
I couldn't come up with that. How do you buy a house and they pay off your student loan debt?
Yeah.
Only God could have done that. So I think it's really saying, God, I surrender my life to you and do what you want to do. You know, he never will cause you to regress in life. Even when I went to McKinsey, I remember my parents, the day I interviewed, they were like, what is McKinsey again? So they go online. They go online and they're like, oh, my dad's like texting. He's like, oh, this place is nice. But basically, it is the world's leading consulting firm. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm leaving clinical medicine, I'm leaving Georgia. But no, God is saying, I'm going to send you to McKinsey because you're thinking of just right now. I'm giving you this entire platform as a strategy consultant because you're highly sought after. LinkedIn every day. As soon as they see it, it's just like a buzzword. Just like Hopkins, it's a buzzword. Everybody wants you to come and work for them. Everybody wants you to do this or do that. It becomes part of your bio.
Right.
And I wouldn't have had that if I stuck to my conventional plans. So God, he will always give better. And I know I'm talking about him a lot, but really, if you look at this story, it's all God. It all started with prayer. I don't know what else to talk about because it wasn't me. I'm just here. I left medicine.
that is really what it is about. It's just that, as you say, if you talk about it a lot, they're like, okay, that's a bit too, but the bottom line is that is the essence of life. That is the center of everything, at the center of it all, as the song says.
Yes.
Really, the other things just there, they fall into place. But that's how it is, because we look at those things and we read those stories. Most of us that are believing Christians, we read those stories, the story of Joseph, story of Moses, story of so and so. And we think that because they're in the Bible, they're so holy, and there were
Yes.
people like us. The fact that they feature in the Bible, there are people like us with the same faults, the
Yes.
same weaknesses, the same strengths, sitting there doubting themselves. God says, come and do this. And that time he was actually coming physically with you. You hear the big old burning bush thing happening. Yet, the people still had the issues following those steps and things. How much more us?
Yes.
Who don't quite see physically what you're being told to do. You get this feeling, this calling, you feel led to do something. It's a burning thing within you, but you look at it and weigh it against common sense and science, and it does not add up. So who are you going to go and shock with that funny story you're about to tell, But it wasn't any easier for somebody like Noah, who says he's building a big old boat and he says there's going to be rain and a flood. They're like, what rain and what flood? We don't see anything anything coming till the flood came, and then now it became, oh,
Now it
for
makes
real, for real,
sense.
real. Yes, so it's been like that, doing a journey that you feel led to do. Sometimes you're going to end up looking stupid. Let me
You
use
can
the word, the
stupid.
term.
That's really
Looking
the right
stupid,
word.
looking
Yeah.
stupid, looking silly, and people are going to
Yes.
roll their eyes and like, what are you doing? What's all this stuff? But then, when
Get offended. So many things.
you have the drill. So how has life been since that? Like, now you said you have your own practice. Do you want to share the name of the place, what it is about? Because we're doing all of this stuff
Yes.
because I plan on having you here pretty much on a regular basis to come and deal with actual medical stuff. But I wanted us to
Mhm.
do this so we have the background of the person we are dealing with. And then when the
Yes.
next time comes along, we don't have to go through all of this introduction again. Bits of it as need be, but not the whole thing again. I want us to have
Yes.
a full picture of the person who I trust and believe will be coming here and giving you a lot of stuff that you need to know about medicine, not just the academic part, the school part, but about the actual conditions that she sees every day. So tell us a little bit about this. You said private practice. Tell us.
So it is called Rofi MD. So ROPHE MD, Rofi MD. It is a concierge medicine practice. And so, what that looks like is I'm offering presidential level care to my patients. I have designed a couple of virtual programs, one of which is really picking up. It's called the Health Reboot Program, which is a program I recommend for everyone. Why? Because it's a program that causes your immune system to reset. If you have any chronic diseases, I actually have a lot of great success stories wherein
Mm-hmm.
people with high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, after doing this program, they are losing weight that they could not lose for the longest time. And by the way, to put a number to it, 10 to 15 pounds within a month. No medications, no fad diets. People who've been on blood pressure medication for 10 years are coming off their medication.
Oh,
Just
wow.
today, was it today or yesterday? Sorry. Yesterday, I took a patient off insulin. He's not the first
Wow.
one I've done. 4 weeks, 4 weeks. And so that is how I onboard all of my patients. Not everyone wants to come and do the program and stay on for the long term because I don't deal with insurance, because I want to make sure I'm providing ample time for my clients. I'm not working with insurance, basically. And so some people come, they do the program, and then they decide, okay, they've learned what they needed and they're good to go, which is fine because I can only see I've limited the number of patients I'm going to have anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that. We also offer vitamin injections at the moment. So B12, and MIC, which is really helpful for weight loss, vitamin C and glutathione, which are really great actually for beauty treatments. Um,
Wow.
I offer comprehensive physicals, which everyone I recommend should have a physical exam done at least once a year. And the nice thing with a practice like mine is I thought of our people, born and raised in Cameroon. Not everyone who comes has insurance. I know a lot of people who love to come in the summertime. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can come at really any time. I can order your test. And the best part is you don't need insurance. I've found ways to be able to order labs for my patients at a discounted rate. And I just see it as a win-win situation. My patients have access to me. They can schedule virtual appointments on the same day, next day. Access is it's a really big problem in the US, access to good primary care doctors. And so this is a way in which I'm trying to solve some of those problems by offering this solution. So I'm excited. We're in our early days, just started a little over 3 months ago. And so now things are really starting to pick
To
up.
pick up. Okay.
Yeah,
That is awesome. That is
yes.
really good. So are you in this by yourself? Are you in a partnership with someone else? How is it? Did you set up on your own?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm the sole provider. The way things are going, I think we are going to grow very quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
so the goal is not to be the only provider because there's only
Right.
one of me. But I think a lot of people, my goal, the goal of the practice, as I mentioned, it's a global concierge firm, global intentionally because I'm happy to see patients all over the world. The goal is to keep millions in excellent health well beyond 100 years. That's my goal for all of my patients. So that's why I have this health reboot program. That's why we're doing the vitamins. That's why we're doing the physicals. That's why we're trying to get people off medication. That's literally my happy place. When I take you off of medication, I'm like rejoicing. So that is the mandate I believe God has given me specifically. I've studied people who have lived well over 100 years and figured out what is it that they did lifestyle wise to keep them for that long. And those are the kinds of recommendations that I'm making for my patients. So patients coming to me, you're going to get very specific instructions: how many fruits you should eat, how many vegetables you should eat every day, how much water, how much exercise, all of these things. They're quite different from the standard recommendations, but I love it because, again, you get results. I think the results speak for themselves. So yeah.
Right. The whole wellness thing, not just the
Yes.
physical, here's a tablet, here
No,
are these strips, then
in
here is this
fact,
thing. Take 2 times a day and so thing, and that's what it's going to
yes.
be as opposed to a lifestyle thing.
And most of these, what are the most common health conditions in the US? They're all chronic disease related. High blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, they're the most common in the US. They're all preventable and they're all reversible. But a lot of people get comfortable with simply taking a tablet, partly because one, that's what your doctor tells you. And
Yes.
two, you don't realize that it doesn't have to be that way. You don't
Mm-mm.
have, I just don't like taking medicine. So I would imagine my patients don't like taking medicine either. So it's like we might need to make some strict changes, but if it's
Right.
the strict changes that will help you get off the medication, let's do the needful.
The mentality will change. It is changing already, and the mentality will change more and more. It'll get better and better. I hope so for you. I pray so for you, but I know what you're talking about. You see, we are like, okay, you're well, okay, then you're well. Just be. Something starts to happen, you don't feel good. If you go to the doctor, you don't want him to tell you, just go and sleep more,
Mm.
eat cabbage and whatever. We're like, where is the prescription to take to the pharmacy?
Yes.
To go and buy this, and this, and take with water
Mm.
3 times a day. You see, that's what we are used to hearing as the solution to anything medical we have. You're either giving me a prescription to go to and buy from the pharmacy, or you're prescribing some surgery. I need to come back and
Mm.
do the things. We're not used to natural things being a solution to whatever ailment
We're not.
yeah.
But the thing is, we grew up with the abundance of the natural things.
Right,
And
right.
so I even partner with a friend of mine who's a pharmacist, and she's from the Caribbean.
Mhm.
And so the two of us, certainly, we're trained to prescribe and to know the medications
Mhm.
and all the things. But, I'll think of an example: turmeric. Turmeric is able to produce the same anti-inflammatory benefit as ibuprofen,
Right.
except the side effects are very different.
Exactly. But you see, we have come, we were here, we shifted to this thing, the medicine things, and then we're now trying to get back to there. Because as you said, we grew up with the things. When I say maybe the generation before us would speak better to this, our mothers had things that they did give us. You have a
Yes.
belly, that constipation. Here's what you take, the enema thing, the so and so things that were a little bit more organic. And in their day, of course, our grandparents' days, of course, there wasn't this kind of stuff. Where did you see the chemist from? You just
Mhm.
knew which herb did what. You just knew which medicinal plant, which bark of a tree did which thing.
Yes.
That was what it was. And then we got to the quote unquote civilized thing where we
Mhm.
thought you need to go, you have to drink something from a bottle, take it out, put a tablet in your palm and drink it with water and stuff. And then now more and more we're learning, going back to the things, the original things that actually have the medicinal value, which we don't even realize is what somebody came and harvested from our backyard, took to a pharmacy somewhere, pharmaceutical industry somewhere,
Exactly.
bottled
Yes.
it, gave it some kind of color, and sent it right back there. And you're busy drinking that thing, thinking, okay, I'm very civilized.
Yeah.
But the roots,
Meanwhile,
yes, it's bitter. They try to coat it with things and stuff, but you're thinking that's what's better, whereas the actual thing organic thing that got made with its medicinal value may be the thing to do. Never, don't worry, we're going to get there. You're going to shift them more and more. We will learn and go back to the things that have no much, I'm sure, much fewer side effects, if any, than the things
Yes.
that we tend to take. No, I'm happy to have had you here. I do not know whether you have anything else to add, but dear listeners, viewers, that's what we wanted. We wanted Dr. Larissa Assam to come over here and talk to you about her journey as a medical professional, as a doctor who has a practice. And you heard her mention those chronic ailments, diabetes, high blood pressure, the things that all of us struggle with. Even if we are not suffering from them ourselves, we know somebody who is. We have a family member
Someone.
who is. And that's what we're hoping in the next couple of weeks. And so hopefully we can make it at least a once a month thing. You come on here and you pick one of those topics and talk to the people about it and provide your kind of solution for that ailment. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I would love that. I think we need it definitely
We do.
in our community. So absolutely, I would love to do that. And
All
thank you
right.
for having me. I think for me, if there's one thing I'm hoping, it's that whatever your circumstances are, whatever it is that you feel the calling on your life is, just go for it. Just
Pursue
stay
it.
focused. Don't allow people to discourage you. Don't allow people to distract you. Sometimes it's not even the discouragement, it's the distraction. I
True.
think I talked quite a lot about focus. And had I not done that for the necessary time, I
Mhm.
would not now be in a position to help people beyond just myself, beyond just my family. So it's going to serve something so much bigger than yourself. And that's the reason why it's literally calling on your life. So don't take yourself for granted. Don't take your education for granted. Don't take your life for granted.
All
Just
right.
stay focused, stay plugged in, and God is with you. That's what I would
Right.
say.
That's the recipe right there. Not just for medical school or for medicine, for pretty much anything.
For
You
life.
have your calling, stay focused, do what it is that you're supposed to do, pray and ask God to lead you, and that's pretty much the recipe. So thank you so much for coming here and talking to us. Clearly, you have wisdom well beyond your years, because there are people who are triple, quadruple your age who still haven't figured that out yet and are going from place to place, not really sure what am I doing, what am I here for, what's my calling, what's my purpose. So it's refreshing to hear somebody this young who has figured out her own purpose, who's been on the road to becoming what she is now from age 7 and has gotten there and is continuing to work to move forward. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for inspiring us, inspiring even me here, who is your mom. Yes, thank you so much, and see you in a bit.
Yes, see you. Thank you for having me.
You're
Bye. Bye,
welcome.
everyone.
Bye.